Well, Ramzan Kamali is here. He'll be telling us about that story, possibly, and much more in the business news. But first, a look at the headlines here on Afternoon Live. There are fresh warnings of snow and ice in many parts of the UK after heavy snow overnight. The mother of a 3-year-old girl has become the first person in the UK to be found guilty of female genital mutilation. The United States is to suspend compliance with a key nuclear arms control agreement signed with the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Here are your business headlines on Afternoon Live. The latest US jobs data appears to show that the world's largest economy appears to have weathered the government shutdown. 304,000 jobs were created in January, almost doubling expectations. Sports Direct owner Mike Ashley has his eye on yet another retail business, this time sofa.com. The mainly online store was put up for sale last month, and today rival furniture business SCS said it was no longer in takeover talks. And TalkTalk said it's not going to make the kind of profits it originally expected. The broadband provider also said that the cost of getting new customers and existing customers to switch to superfast broadband would cost an extra £15 million.
Well, let's start with that story about TalkTalk. So they've got more customers, but they don't think they'll make as much money.
Yeah,
How?
you think you have more customers, you make more money, but it costs money to get these customers on board. They've spent about £15 million just to get them to switch or to come to them, and you know it's a very, very competitive market, and margins are very tight. So, but they're still making money, so we shouldn't forget that. But it is a pretty competitive arena they're in.
Now, Mike Ashley is in the news again.
Yeah.
He has his eyes on another retailer.
Yes, and he seems to be trying to buy all these bargain basement retailers at the moment. There's talks that he's being linked with HMV, with Patisserie Valerie, now Sofa.com. And Sofa.com is mainly online, but has concessions in House of Fraser, which Michael Ashley's company actually owns. So it's another early in December he was saying to MPs at Select Committee that he thought the high street was on its knees. So he clearly doesn't quite believe that, otherwise he wouldn't be buying all these retailers, in my opinion.
I was talking to Jamie, your colleague, a little earlier about the US jobs market, which, strangely enough, seems to be flying, and the shutdown doesn't seem to have had much of an impact.
It might seem that on first glance. I mean, over 300,000 jobs, that's almost double what economists were expecting. But you've got to remember that December's figure was also downgraded. It was meant to be over 300,000 there as well, 312,000. That was downgraded to 222,000. And on top of that, the employment rate has nudged up to 4%. And actually, the US Labour Department said that was all down to the shutdown. In fact, let's talk about this with our markets guest. That's Michael Hewson from CMC Markets. Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with those US job numbers. They, on the face of it, look brilliant. But should we be cautious about this?
I think we should be a little bit cautious. Let's not mistake, Ramzan, they are still very good numbers. The US jobs market has been adding jobs consistently on a month-by-month basis since September 2011. So 100 months in, and the labour market is still adding jobs. But I think the 304,000 number we should be suspicious of because of the government shutdown, because a lot of furloughed or laid off US government workers, I think, took up part-time jobs to offset the loss of income. And that is reflected in the private component of that number. And I think there's a good chance that that number could actually get revised down in the same way the December number was. And wages growth also edged a little bit lower as well. So all in all, a very good number. I think what it will do is it will keep the Federal Reserve very much on hold for the foreseeable future, despite the very decent numbers that we've seen this afternoon.
And they pretty much said that on Wednesday as well. They said they weren't in a position to start putting rates up, which is a brilliant situation for the US consumer, isn't it? More jobs, slightly better pay, and no rates going up.
Indeed, but also I think you have to put it in the context of the government shutdown. The Fed is flying blind to a certain extent with respect to some of the data that's coming out of the consumer sector. We haven't seen retail sales for the US economy, and we haven't seen the latest GDP numbers. They should be coming out in the next 2 weeks, and the Fed will have a much better idea of what consumer spending, the hit that consumer spending has taken as a result of this shutdown.
Now, Mike Ashley's back in the news again. He's got his eyes on Sofa.com. His appetite doesn't seem to be waning and trying to buy these struggling retailers.
No, it doesn't, but I think he's got an eye on the fact that ultimately he'll get a whole host of cheap stock for Debenhams and House of Fraser. He won't get any of the debts, he won't get any of the liabilities, and he'll be able to drive a hard bargain on leases if he takes over HMV or Patisserie Valerie. So ultimately I think he's taking a chance that he'll be able to get some cheap stock and be able to use it in his other franchises.
And just very quickly on Talk. You know, their shares have been hit today. They've said they're not going to make so much money, but they're still making money. Are the markets overreacting to this?
I think they are, Ramzan, yes, because if you actually look at the numbers compared to a year ago, Talk profits are likely to still come in over 20% up from the numbers of last year, £197 million last year. So they're going to come in around about 250 million. They're going to spend a little bit extra in trying to accrue new clients. They have added clients, 44,000 in the last quarter, and the churn rate has gone down. So all in all, I don't think it's as bad as the markets would suggest that it is.
Michael Hewson from CMC Markets, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Markets now, I think, Rita.
Tell us about markets.
So, FTSE up at 1 point, and it's broken above 7,000, so that's good news there. The Dow up again, and in fact, Donald Trump has tweeted in the last hour, last couple of hours, about the Dow, saying it's record January, best in 30 years. So he's taking a lot of credit for that already. Sports Direct, that we talked about Mike Ashley there, their share price is up. They don't seem to be affected by the fact that they're trying to diversify even more. And Talk, the share price down almost 5%, and yet we still think they're going to make £200 million in 2018 and £250 million next year. So what do we know?
Very good to talk to you, Ramzan.
You too, Rita.
Many thanks.